What is up, fellow summoners? Welcome to the channel today for the last part in this Road to the Labyrinth series. We will be finally covering 4.6 here. And 4.6 is full of, really, it's not one global node like you see in all of the other chapters, but this one has got a little bit of everything in it. It's got some safeguard, got spiked armor, got spite, the power gain buff. So you've got to be able to build your team to deal with all of those things. Speaking of team compositions, I will cover that at the very end of this video once I've gotten through Thanos. So either stick around for the end or skip ahead if you want to talk about team compositions. For the first fight here, Superior Iron Man, this is a good spot to kind of ease yourself into 4.6, get the thumbs warmed up. Dealing with spiked armor here, and just like all of the other nodes, my personal preference, I think the best way to deal with spiked armor nodes is to have somebody who has both bleed and regen. The bleeds help because you don't necessarily have to hit so many times and deal with having all those extra crit damage coming back to yourself. And then obviously if you've got somebody you can pair with that's got the regen as well, you'll also be able to play around the spiked armor damage. I prefer, I think, using X23 and 4.6. I ran testing with both Wolverine and X23. Wolverine can finish the fight just as easily, however it is a much longer fight. You're talking somewhere between like 220 to 240 hits. When I was testing with Wolverine, that's without running suicides. But when I run it with X23, typically you can get it done almost, well, I shouldn't say almost, but every single time in less than 150 hits. So if you're going to use X23, as always, I probably would not use specials. Just leave your power bar all the way up at 3 so that when you do hit a regen, you're getting your max regen back. Let the bleeds kind of speak for themselves. They'll do most of the damage that you, or most of the work for you without using specials. So, I mean, you can take a risk and use specials if you want, but when you are taking the spiked armor damage or when you're taking block damage, you're not going to be regenning as much. You can see right there, I'm regenning for right under 160, so not bad at all. Do keep in mind, 4.6, the characters, the AI in general, is a lot more aggressive. With Superior Iron Man, typically when he dashes forward, he almost always follows it up with a second medium attack. Just like that right there. So just be aware if you don't, if you're evading back, make sure you have enough space to either block, or either evade back again or block or try to parry that second hit because he is pretty aggressive. Outside of that, not very difficult fight. Just get in there, get your thumbs warmed up, and get ready for the next fight, which is Abomination. We'll jump right into it. Now this Abomination has got an increased damage with his poison, so really you can bring in champs who lower defensive ability accuracy. However, I think it is smarter to bring in somebody who is just totally poison immune and not take the risk of getting poison applied to yourself. Really, the character that you use here for Abomination, you're also going to be using for Scarlet Witch, in my personal opinion. Because she's also got the chance to poison you and heal block you, which can be a lot of damage. The reason that I would highly recommend using either Vision, AOU Vision, or OG Vision, either one will work fine, is because once you do finally get through this fight, you can also use this character to deal with Cyclops for the class advantage. He's also got Spite, so you need a power control. And then also, like I mentioned with Scarlet Witch, she also has Spite. You'll have the poison immunity. You'll be able to control her power gain. So whoever you're using here for this fight, I would highly recommend both using, or excuse me, not both using, but also using in the Cyclops fight and also using in the Scarlet Witch fight. So for those reasons, I would bring in Vision. Other characters that would beat Abomination, Hulk, I find a lot of success with. His ability to stun, even though Safeguard is on Abomination here, he can't hit as hard as normal, but it's easier to control the fight, to push him into specials when he's stunned, and be able to bait out specials if you're not great at intercepting. There are a couple times, well, not a couple times, at some point in here, I make a mistake. I can't remember if I'm trying to intercept and he catches me. I don't know, somewhere in here you'll see he does hit you, and he hits really, really hard. So if you're great at intercepting, that's awesome. However, if you're not so great at it, like myself, I find it much easier to get through the nodes by baiting out the specials. So that's why I think Hulk is really good, because you can push him into his specials and control the fight easier that way with baiting out specials. Ultron you can use here as well. However, again, taking into consideration that you're going to want to use Ultron for the poison immunity with Scarlet Witch, if you try to use him there and then also try to use him against Cyclops, he does have the armor up buffs, he's got a regen buff, so all of that is going to trigger Spite. So again, all of that is just leading up to the fact that I think it's probably best to use Vision here because of his power control moving forward as well. I'm going to speed up the fight. It is a fairly long fight here. We'll speed it up, get it to the end, and then we'll move forward. Next up is Cyclops, and I wanted to give Yondu a try here. Cyclops has got the Spite, so every time you trigger a buff on yourself, they get a power gain until it goes away. And Yondu actually, he's got a couple things going for him here. He's got bleeds, so that's going to help get through the fight quicker. He does not have any self buffs in and of himself. The one thing you have to keep in mind is that he would be able to steal armor, but I don't have to worry about that here, so he's not going to trigger power gain through Spite outside of, you can see it right there, Dexterity. Now there's a couple of ways that you can play around Dexterity, and I think I do a fairly decent job of kind of showing it off here. I'll just kind of explain it, and then I'll try to point it out as best I can. If you give yourself a little bit of distance and let your guard down, the AI is more susceptible to triggering the S1. Because really the one thing you're trying to play around, because you don't have power control here, is you really don't want to push him into 2 bars of power. Because once you push him past that, if you're trying to evade back and bait that thing out, you run the risk of him gaining power through Dexterity, and then he's going to kill you with his S3. So what I try to do is, as soon as I push him into an S1, as you can see there, I'm trying to keep an evade or 2 distance between the characters here. And if you evade back while the enemy is stunned, obviously that is not going to trigger any sort of Dexterity. So when I'm getting close to wanting to try to bait out the special, it doesn't work every single time, but what I'm trying to do is stun him and evade back, and then just stand there, let myself maybe walk in a little bit towards him. And a lot of times, and unfortunately didn't do it there, but a lot of times that will trigger them to use their S1, as you saw right there. Now, Yondu, I have a ton of fun playing with. Do keep in mind that his S2 hits harder and harder for every single special that has been used throughout the fight. So the S2 actually hits quite a bit harder than the S1, so I'm trying my best to kind of save up, because he doesn't have any kind of willpower, no regen here, so there's no reason really to use the S1 for the heal block. So I'm pretty much just saving up the S2s, and it's starting to hit fairly hard here. That was in total, I think it was between about 11 and 12,000 there from the S2, and it's only going to hit harder from that point. If you can get a crit with that S2, you're in good shape. But really, the fight has been going fairly well. Really have only triggered his power gain Spite just a couple times, typically when I'm evading back from the S1. But the biggest thing to keep in mind is don't really try to be overly aggressive. As soon as you get him, I mean right before you get him, and as soon as you get him into an S1, you should be thinking about, okay, how am I going to be able to bait this thing out? There you saw a really strong S2 and just about to finish him off. So overall, really good spot, I think, to kind of highlight Yondu. I do use him again, I think, with Rocket in the next fight. But yeah, good show off here of Yondu and his abilities. Rocket Raccoon is running with an unblockable S1 and an S2 in this fight. I would do my best probably to steer clear of that S2. It's much easier to, not that either one of them are difficult, but it's easier to evade the S1, as you can see there. The other thing is he does have Safeguard. Really could have gotten through this fight probably quicker if I used X23, just because of her stronger bleeds to work around Safeguard. However, I thought, you know what, I've got Yondu here, probably won't use him again. So let's go ahead and just finish him off here. If he manages to kill me, he kills me. But it actually went fairly well. The thing that I totally forget after thinking through all this is the fact that I keep using the S2 thinking it's going to hit harder and harder, but he's got Safeguard, so that totally negates the usefulness of that. So this fight, I'll speed up here. Really nothing much to say that I haven't already said. Try to bait out the S1. Outside of that, yeah, not a whole lot here. He does clip me. You'll see it here in a second. Doesn't kill me. I don't know if he hits. I can't remember if he hits me with a 4 or 5 hit combo, but almost takes me down. Had just enough life. If I was using X23 with class disadvantage, probably would have killed me, but thankfully I survive it and am able to take him down and move on to the next fight. Now I will mention this is all one run that I'm doing, so I didn't want to restart, so I'm not wanting to use revives or anything like that. So I'm trying my best not to get killed in any of these fights, trying to do it all in one take. So yeah, I'll let you watch the end of this fight and we'll come back for the next one. Up next is Venom Pool, and he's got a combination that's a little bit of a pain to deal with, and that is he is stun immune, plus he's got the spite buff. You can see there every time I evade back with Dexterity, it pops up there. And when you can't stun the enemy, you have to pretty much be able to either have a special on hand or be able to intercept to get that off. So that can be a pain unless you are just dealing with somebody who can just shut them down completely. So I opted to bring in magic here for the power lock with the S2. That way I don't really ever have to worry about you know, having to intercept or having to blow a special when I don't want to, just to get that power gain off of him. And as you can see here, she does also have class advantage, so she's hitting pretty hard. Just keep spamming that S2 and that pretty much locks him down the whole time. A lot of the damage that I am taking is through block damage, but I think that's one of the easiest ways to play it. If you stand there and force the enemy to hit you while you're blocking, a lot of times you'll force them into using a heavy attack like that, which his heavy attack, just remember, there is two parts to it. A lot of times I forget, which thankfully I did when I was recording this, but a lot of times when I play him, I always forget, thinking he's got the same uppercut as Venom, and it's something completely different. So just be aware and be ready. And right there, yeah, he almost got me right there. He went unstoppable, like right as I was getting ready to use the S2. Thankfully, I evaded back, was able to bait out that special. So that's just Venom Pool. It's just one of the things you got to keep in mind is that he's getting all these crazy buffs, which his buff duration is increased by 40%, but really outside of that unstoppable buff, really none of the other ones you need to worry about. Limbo also kicks in a couple times here. It's nice to have the limbo up while you're taking the block damage, while you're waiting for him to, or while you're trying to bait out the heavy attack. Really, I would just bring in somebody who's got power control. So I would bring in magic. If you don't have magic, I think you could run vision back in here. However, you've got class disadvantage with vision and no way for healing. And right there, you'll see limbo kick in. So he's going to take quite a bit of damage. Rogue, if you brought Rogue along, you probably could use her here. Power control, S1 can steal some buffs and regen. So overall, I think magic is the easiest way to get through this fight, at least for me. Up next is Black Panther Civil War, and this really takes you full circle. This is the exact same fight that you started off Road to the Labyrinth in 4.1. He is stun immune, just like that fight. Also has spiked armor, just like that fight. So again, this is a great spot to be able to bring in whichever bleed / heal champ that you brought in to deal with Superior Iron Man. You're also going to want to pull out and use him here as well. X-23 and Wolverine, again, are great because they've got not only both of those characteristics, but also class advantage. So really, the bleeds from Wolverine and X-23 are actually going to be ticking a little bit higher because of that. This fight is, well, it's a little hairy, I'll put it that way. It goes along fairly smoothly at the beginning. However, towards the end, he does clip me, and we do pull through, but it does get a little bit tight. One thing I will mention is if you're having issues doing a 5-hit combo and then evading back fully from that S1, because what you'll notice is sometimes, not every time, but as soon as you finish a 5-hit combo, when you evade back, if you don't instantly evade back again, and he goes into his S1 as you finish your combo, sometimes he can clip you at the tail end of that, and if he has reflective armor going, you're going to get hit really, really hard. So one of the things, if you want to try and you're having issues with that, is just do a 4-hit combo and evade back once. That will give you more than enough space, more than enough time to be able to better react when he does use the S1. Frankly, I find it easier to just push him as often as I can into the S2. The S2 is much easier, I can't talk, to be able to evade. However, if you're not great at intercepting, because he is stun immune, you're going to have to be able to parry, or not parry him, but intercept him, or bait out specials. Those are really your two options. Yeah, right there. If you're not paying attention close, it didn't look like it was going to hit you, but it clips you there at the very end. What was I getting ready to say? Oh, yes. When you are taking block damage, just remember the heavy attack. The AI is most of the time, after maybe 1 or 2 hits, going to go into the heavy attack. So that's also an opportunity to be able to hit him. Again, I will let this one play out. All these fights are fairly long. But yeah, this one, like I said, it gets hairy towards the end. I'll let you watch that. And then come back again for the Scarlet Witch fight. Scarlet Witch is up next, and this fight is the very reason why I brought in Vision for A-Bomb. The poison ability, or his poison immunity, helps with A-Bomb. Helps here with Scarlet Witch as well. As you can see, I've got a heal block on me. I often find as soon as I get a heal block, I also get poison on myself, but really either way, you don't have to worry about that with Vision. Plus, she has the Spite armor, so when you are getting buffs on yourself, it's triggering the power gain. Which, do keep in mind, although Vision does not gain buffs in and of himself, you can see right there, he's got a Fury buff that is coming from Scarlet Witch's signature ability for a chance to gain a buff when there's a crit. So every once in a while, you will get that buff, which is going to trigger the Spite. There's no way for you to get rid of it, so you just need to be aware. There it is, I've got it again. You just need to be aware and always have a special that's kind of ready to go. Be able to use that to control the power. This fight is really not that difficult. You know, I like to try to parry stun as much as I can, just to keep her back there in the corner. I find that when I'm closer to her, it's easier for me to be able to evade the S1. For some reason, if I'm further away or out in the middle, I don't know what it is. It's just a visual thing for me. But I don't find it as easy to get the timing down with that S1. So if I control the fight, keep it in the corner, it's easy for me to be able to evade that S1, which the S1, as I mentioned, I don't remember if it was like 4.3 or 4.4, she was in there, had an unblockable S1. If you evade back as soon as you see her go up, you're going to mistime it. You have to wait for her to come up just a split second, and then she finally fires that thing off once she reaches kind of the top of her levitation, whatever you want to call it. But there is enough time that if you're fairly close to her, you can evade that and immediately come back in to get the 5-hit combo on her. Overall, not a very difficult fight if you are prepared with the right champs. Again, if you bring in somebody who does not have power control or who is susceptible to the poison damage with the heal block, this can be a little bit more difficult. So for that reason, AOU Vision, OG Vision, just bring him. It'll make your life a lot easier. And then finally, last but certainly not least, is Thanos, which, what is this, like the 3rd time we fought Thanos in Chapter 4, Road to the Labyrinth. And the fight didn't start off great. I used my magic, and frankly, she's probably the best option for this node, but I was being a little bit over-aggressive, trying to get every intercept that I could, and he took me out. So, really, in only 59 hits, I was able to do about 50,000 damage. So really, what is it, 40? Yeah, almost 50,000 damage. So all I've got left, really, at this point, because again, I'm really not wanting to use revives or anything like that, is Captain America. And he was kind of my flex player that I brought in. Remember, you've got Safeguard on Thanos, immune to debuff effects, so you can't stun him, you can't put bleeds on him. That's why Limbo is really good. Limbo doing the extra damage, plus the S2 is going to power control. It's not going to power lock him, but it is going to power drain him, and you'll power steal a little bit, so that's why I like magic. But yeah, this Winter Soldier fight, I've got it on fast forward for a reason. It's just really, really long. Yeah, I'll let the thing play out here, but there's really not much to say. This is all about being able to bait out specials. He doesn't have any power control. Outside of he's got kinetic reactors, so he is gaining power when he hits you. And sometimes if you are trying to bait out a special, sometimes it actually makes sense to stand there and let him hit you once just so he goes into one full bar of power and then bait it out and hit him. Sometimes that's easier than trying to intercept him. But yeah, this is really, this fight kind of is the bread and butter of MCOC. You know, the baiting out specials, being able to block bait out specials, it's really, there's nothing outside of that too tricky. The fight is so much easier now than it was before. They fixed the evade back bug. I think it was 4.5 was the last time that I faced Thanos, and I was so frustrated in that fight because when he dashes forward, he usually does a medium attack followed by a second medium attack, and you couldn't get out of the way. You couldn't evade back quick enough before the bug, so I was really frustrated with that fight. However, this is a much better showing of how to beat Thanos now that the evade bug has been fixed. Alright, I will let this thing play out in fast forward, and I will catch you at the end to go over my team composition. For all the Road to Labyrinth fights, it's very important that you understand the nodes that you're going to be fighting against. But in 4.6, it's a little bit of everything, so you've got to be able to be prepared to deal with every one of these situations for spiked armor, for the spite, the power gain, and then also for safeguard. The composition and the way that I would make up your team is I would have two champs that have got reliable power control, and then 2 champs that can deal with both safeguard and spiked armor. So if you look at the top there, I've got magic and I've got vision for the power control, but they also help me deal with the poison immunity from Abomination, power control, poison ability from Scarlet Witch as well. So, you know, other options up there. Possibly if you didn't have magic, you could use, I'm trying to think of other really good power control champs. Dormammu would probably be a good one to bring in for double immunity as well. In fact, he could probably even take the spot of vision there. So if you wanted to bring in Dormammu, if you had even Rogue with the S2, might be kind of a lesser option, but you could bring her in there as well. Anybody else that's got power control, power drain, Hawkeye would probably be a good option as well. Even for his bleed effect would be very helpful. So yeah, definitely make sure you bring in somebody that's got poison immunity, so Vision or Dormammu I think would work really well. And if you have magic, just bring magic. She'll be a really good option for you. And then the last two there with Wolverine and Yondu, again, you're wanting to bring in somebody that can deal with the spiked armor. So definitely the spot that I've got X-23, you're going to want to put either X-23 or Wolverine. Somebody else who might have a decent regen there in Voodoo probably wouldn't be a terrible option as well. But definitely X-23, definitely Wolverine. And then for the last spot, it is Yondu. That's mostly just to deal with safeguard. Again, Cyclops is a good one to use there. He doesn't have any buffs in and of himself, but you could technically probably swap him out with Gwenpool. I don't think, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Gwenpool has any buff effects of herself. She applies a lot of debuffs, but I don't think she has any buffs. So yeah, X-23, Wolverine, Yondu, Gwenpool would be excellent here. Archangel you probably could use as well, but again, it's going to be a little more difficult to work around spiked armor without having the regen there. And then finally, that middle one there where I've got Captain America, that is definitely a flex position. If you want to bring in any particular character, I probably would err on the side of bring in another power control. The power control fights with Spite, I think, are more difficult than the safeguard or the spiked armor fights. So again, if you wanted to bring in a third power control champ there, that would be good. If not, probably try to bring in somebody who does not have a buff in and of themselves, so that you can use them against any of the spite enemies as well. Alright guys, I have had a lot of feedback on this Road to Labyrinth guide. I'm happy now to finally be able to finish it. Thanks for all the support, thanks for all the kind words. Hope it helps somebody out moving forward. If you have any questions in particular about 4.6 or really any of the other nodes, or any of the other chapters I should say, I'd be happy to help answer those as best I can for you. If you want to leave your questions down in the comment section, or if you want to hit me up over on Twitter, the description, the link will be in the description to my Twitter account, so make sure you follow me there as well. All right, guys, till I see you in the next video, have a great day.